Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to the Lifestwists Show with your hosts, Terry Robinson, Lance Conley, and Eric Harrison.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Lifestwists Show. We are so glad that you're joining us this evening. The last show got so many different people calling in and talking about all of the great things that we brought up with Derrick Rose and some of the transitions that he's going through. And now we're going to talk about another athlete who's in the spotlight right now, Aaron Rodgers, and also bring in some stuff that's dealing with other athletes that may be dealing with some of the same things that Aaron is. But without further ado, I'm going to begin to introduce, or I'm not going to begin to introduce, I'm going to introduce my partners in crime. First and foremost, Lance Conley. What's up, Lance?
Hey, Eric. Good evening. Nice to hear from you again.
Yes, sir. Good to hear from you too, brother. Good to hear from you too. And then also, again, the author of the book Athlete Transition Stress, and my good friend of many years, Terry Robinson. What's up, Terry?
Not too much, Eric. How are you doing?
I'm great, man. I'm great. So listen, we're just going to go ahead and jump right into it. We're going to jump right into it. Terry, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to you, and let's get started, man. Let's get going.
Okay. Well, thanks. You know, I try to follow these athletes, try to follow the stories because, you know, my interest is how people transition, and not just athletes, but people in general. But, you know, I like to specify athletes because, you know, those are the people that I pay close attention to because I was a former athlete. And a lot of times, you know, you can follow the professional athletes because, you know, if you read the newspapers or you surf the web or you look at the news on TV, you're going to see news in regards to how they're doing. And just so last week I happened to be reading an article about Aaron Rodgers, and you know, pretty good quarterback, you know, great quarterback actually. And it was an article about him, you know, being estranged from his family for like 2 years. And so I thought that would be an interesting topic for us to discuss, you know, not necessarily to get into his business, but just try to understand, you know, how, you know, somebody in his position could, you know, allow something like that to happen. And sometimes I believe personally that it's legitimate. Sometimes it's just we get caught up in the moment or caught up in the hype, whatever you want to call it. And we distance ourselves from the people that loved us, even when before we made it to where we are, or in some cases where we didn't have anything. And so I tried to do a little research on them because there's not a whole lot of information out there. But I'm sure after that came out, things will start surfacing, you know, because we're interested. And like I said, I'm not interested in terms of a negative topic or negative news. I'm more interested just to see how he transitions, you know, when he leaves the game, because I believe he's already transitioning. You know, a lot of times people think the transition occurs after the career ends, but in reality, you start transitioning before you leave the game. And I think this speaks highly towards transitioning. You know, because you got to think about life after sports. And what was your life like before sport? It's critical to understanding that. It's a saying that you don't know your history, you don't know where you're going. And so I'm sure that it's going to be very difficult for him when he transitions out of sport. And the reason why is because I know he did have a loving relationship with his family based on some of the things I read. And I think what he's doing now is he's able to suppress it because he's still playing sports. So you got another family, which is the athletes. And then, you know, you hear a lot of talk about his girlfriend or his wife, and she's the reason why he's doing that. So that's another family. But, you know, when it's all said and done, when he leaves his main family right now, which is that football team or that organization, you know, that's going to leave a void there, a huge void, because you're around athletes. You guys are doing everything every day for years together, and all of a sudden there's no more of that. So I think, you know, that's when the things that he put on the shelf, which is his family, will eventually start resurfacing, and he has to try to work through that if he want to be happy moving forward in life. And so that's kind of how I'm looking at it, and just trying to understand, how did he go from, loving his family to all of a sudden, no contact. Because I also heard that, he had a grandfather that passed recently, and he didn't even attend the funeral. And this was somebody he talked to on a daily basis, from what I understood. And but at some point in time, whatever occurred, the grandfather was not calling him anymore. So of course he was upset about it, based on what I read. And when the grandfather passed, they said that he didn't attend the funeral. And so you read all this different stuff, and you're trying to understand what's going on in this person's head. And there's also talk about him being arrogant and this and that. I don't know him personally, but I have witnessed that before.
And what amazes me in this situation, Terry, is that here you have an athlete that on the field is in total control. He scrambles around the pockets. He is on the run, throwing pinpoint passes. 30 seconds left in the game. Total control. And then you look at some situations off the playing field, and especially when it comes to family, it's kind of surprising that there is that lack of control. You listen to his brother and his dad talk. They're kind of surprised. It sounds like he's the one that stopped talking to them. So it really does make you wonder what happened, and maybe the girlfriend is a part of that. But one of the things that you were saying during that when you were speaking was that athletes are going through the transition while they're still playing, and I think that's so true, whether it's high school, college, or professional. But do you think that the athlete is conscious that they're going through that transition, or are they even aware of it? You know what I mean? Because
I'm sure. I'm sure he's not conscious of it. And that's because, life, in so many respects, life gives us what we need during the time that we need in a lot of situations. Like right now, football is such a huge distraction that, it's a lot easier for him to walk away from his family. You know what I mean? Because look at the demand that it causes, in order to be playing at that level. So it's easy to walk away from something that really means more to you because you got this huge distraction. And you couple that with a family, with his own family, wife and kids, I'm sure, all those different things. So it's kind of underneath the surface. It's almost like the only thing he can see is the tip of the iceberg above the ocean. You know what I mean? But underneath that ocean, there's a big, huge boulder there that he's missing. And a lot of times, denial is real. We talk about this all the time. And denial is something that can keep you going. You know what I mean? Where you just don't want to see it. And people think that, he's doing that intentionally. Well, a lot of times it's a coping mechanism. It keeps you from seeing what you don't want to see, but you probably need to see it. And right now, with the distraction of football and the playoffs, well, now they're no longer in, but and now some things may start surfacing. But when you're in the moment, when you're playing at that level, I mean, because I'm sure, as good as he is, that's what he does. By the time he get up out of the bed and by the time he goes to sleep, it's all football. Studying film, studying play, just going through what he's been doing for the last probably 30 years of his life. And so it's a lot easy to miss those things. And now when you have time to sit down and you got some quiet time, then those things will start bubbling up. And we'll see how well he responds to it. I'm hoping that he does well. And that's why we have these conversations, because in reality, we all have those kind of experiences. We're just utilizing him because he's a public figure. And everybody knows who he is, and they can relate to him. But I know people personally that's done that with their own family. You know what I mean? And sometimes they never make those connections because they don't have these conversations that we're having. A lot of times it's just we go through periods of time. We go through seasons where we literally lose our mind. You know what I mean? Because we're distracted by another person or by a job or a situation. And one day we wake up and we realize that, man, I really need my family. Because when it's all said and done, that's all you got anyway, whether you have $1 or $1 million. And I think, he's one of those people who's going to eventually find it out.
Because I think if you even think about it, you talk about his girlfriend or his wife, and when she came into the situation, I'm sure that was a transition for the whole family. And you just reading a little bit, I think she was introduced to the family a couple times, and I don't think the meetings or the interactions went very well. So something happened along those lines. But that's just a huge transition for that family. And now, for obviously at some point it's going to have an impact on Aaron, because your family is your family, and hopefully someday they're able to repair that. But I think what you say is so important, is because I think we're all going through transition, but we're not aware of it, or we're not conscious of it. And I think that's what you do with your book: provide education and materials to make people aware. It's like, hey, be more conscious of this situation. You might be at the top of your game, but in some capacity you're going through a transition. I can relate it to, my business experience. When you're going through adversity, or, you're on top of your game, you don't even realize that, you're potentially going through a transition, and you have to prepare yourself. Otherwise, when it's all said and done, what are you left with? I think you're left with a lot of questions, denial, depression, a lot of things that I think people go through, and not necessarily wouldn't have to go through as intensely if they were more aware of it. You know what I mean? And I think that's one of the things that we're trying to do, is make people aware of that through education and awareness, and just talking about it.
Right. And going back to, his relationship with this woman, I don't know if he met this woman, before he started playing. It sounds like he definitely met her while he was a professional.
Yeah.
So that makes a difference too. when you meet somebody, when you're I'm Aaron Rodgers and I meet somebody versus I'm just a normal person and I meet someone, it's going to be a different dynamic there. But when you're a professional athlete and then you just happen to meet a woman and marry him, I'm sure his family looking at what's her motivation. They probably looking at where he came from, and this person don't really fit who we know Aaron to be. Because to them, he's just Aaron. He's not Aaron Rodgers, the superhero, the superstar. This is Aaron. But he's attracting certain individuals in his life, and they want to look out for him. And he's probably like, look, I know what I'm doing. I'm Aaron Rodgers, and they're looking at him like, man, because I look at a lot of professional athletes. Some of the women they choose to marry.
Yeah.
A lot of times they just look like trophy women, because none of them are happy, and a lot of them end up getting divorced. And it's you look at some of these wives, they have some of these reality TV shows with these women that some professional athletes marry, and you look at some of these shows, and some of these women are attractive looking women, but when you see their personalities on TV, whether it's real or not, it's like, how did they even get to a point where they marry some of these people, And I question that, and I think they get sucked into this Hollywood type of perspective. The drop dead gorgeous looking woman, but it seems like
I think Aaron,
of them have. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think Aaron kind of followed the Tom Brady model. He married that model, and Aaron, it's something about fame. Having a lot of money, and who you get a chance to get exposed to, and obviously his wife is a actress, a pretty famous actress, and a beautiful woman. But yeah, it seems like when you become an athlete, you're almost programmed, especially when you get a lot of money and you become like a superstar or whatever. A lot of times they do find women are attracted to women that are sometimes those the supermodel, or a person that it's more sometimes, like you said, the trophy wife or whatever. So so yeah, it's interesting that Aaron kind of decided to do that, because I think he's just, you said, a regular guy growing up. So.
And I think their motivation is to try to protect him more than try to hurt him, but he can't see that. I don't think, based on what I was reading, it don't sound like his family has any ill intent towards him. Sounds like, they just want to continue to be a part of his life. It don't seem like they're looking for money or because you do have situations such as that where family just got their hands out all the time, and it's like, man, I have to say no, and then you end up creating this barrier between yourself and your family, and that did everything I read, that didn't come across. So I don't think that's what the issue is, and I really do. I hate to say it, but maybe it is his relationship with his wife. You know what I mean? And maybe they don't feel comfortable with it, and they feel like she's not the right person for him, which, that's not their decision. Their decision is to allow him to be the man that he is, and he has to learn that. Unfortunately, somebody has to give, but of course, we have strong wills, man, and we believe in what we believe, huh?
Yeah, because there are different circumstances, especially when family becomes involved. Because I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan, and they have an All-Pro offensive tackle, Tyron Smith, and he got into the NFL. He was a first-round pick. The first contract he signed was pretty big, and the first thing he did is he hired I think a lot of these players hire business managers, and obviously it was a friend of the family's. I think like 6 months a year into his contract, he was kind of asking, where's all my money going? And it got to the point where family members would drive hundreds of miles and show up on his doorstep demanding money, and it got to the point where he actually had to make a court document that they couldn't show up, or they had to stay away from him because his own family, that's all they were really concerned about was the money, and being involved with that. And he even said that he still wants to have a relationship with his family, but that's beyond the condition of it's not about money, because he said he got voted into an all-star game or something like that, and instead of the family come and congratulate him, they called and thought it'd be more money that he would make. So obviously, there's a lot a player has to go through or does go through that sometimes we don't see. In case of Aaron Rodgers, I don't think no one even knew of it, because, like you said, it was 2 years that, they haven't spoken. I think it was finally his brother that was on The Bachelor that made it public or whatever. But yeah, it's these players, which creates a lot more stress in their lives when they have people that are close to them that they feel like they're not connecting to, or they're being taken advantage of.
Yeah. I think one of the things with the whole thing is this too, guys. I guess we keep bringing up these superstar athletes, and we bring up athletes because that's kind of the premise of what we talk about, athlete transition stress. But I also think that some of these problems that we are seeing are problems that many people just have within their families altogether. And then what happens is, on top of it, is a superstar athlete or athlete with a whole lot of money. You see what I mean? And then that exacerbates the problem, makes the problem worse, and it winds up growing and growing into something bigger. Because I've known people who, for instance, have married, like a guy married a girl who basically the family may not have liked, or the girl is like, hey, you don't need to be around them. I've heard that plenty of times. And I think even in Aaron Rodgers' case, that could have been the case, like it is with most families. But then on top of that, with him having the money, and also with people saying little things about Aaron Rodgers, like, I've heard people say stuff like, man, this dude's arrogant. You know what I mean? People talk about how after plays, he'll point out his players and say, oh, man, why you ain't catch that? So what people do, what they also wind up doing is kind of piling on him. You know what I mean? On top of that, but in all actuality, man, I've seen a lot of people have the same problem with their mother, their father, and the family really not liking that person that somebody married. And then once that dude see that, he's like, you know what, I don't care what y'all say. This is my woman, or this is my wife, and I'm rolling with this, and y'all take it or leave it, like it or lump it. So, it's a common problem. But then when you got money and when you got fame and you're playing that sport, it kind of gets magnified, just like everything else.
No question about it. And that's kind of what we were speaking about earlier. We just, the only reason we highlight Aaron Rodgers is because, he's somebody that's in the spotlight. Like you said, this is an everyday occurrence. But we when you look at it, You know, at the end of the day, you know, if I only had a week to live, you know what I mean, what would be important to me? You know, what would be important, not just to me, but in general? What would be important to me if I only had a week to live? You know what I mean? What would you be thinking about, and who would you be thinking about? You know, that's the question. And I think it all goes back to your family members. You know, the people that were there from day one. And I don't think there's nothing more important than family. I really don't. Because, you know, when you land over there in that casket, who you think gonna be over there crying and boo-hooing about you because you're gone? You know, is it the people that you just met, or is it going to be the people that you've known your entire life that you know had your back?
Right. But you know what, T? The other thing too. Remember, like I said, fame and money will mask that. It's almost like it'll put a shroud over it, or put a cover over what's really important. You see what I mean? Because we put so much importance on the sport. We put so much importance on Sunday's big game. You know what I mean? Or on the season, or on the franchise, that we tend to forget about the things that really matter. You know, and I think that's what happened maybe a little bit here with maybe Aaron Rodgers and some of these other athletes, because I've heard the same story with a lot of guys. And what happens is you really got to dig deep. This may be the thing that got him away from his family and away from a situation that he may have never liked, like you guys said. You know, this may have been the thing that was the key to set him free. So now I got a choice between the thing that set me free and that's bringing me happiness right now, or to get back with y'all. You know what I'm saying? And like you said, man, it kind of hides the importance of what your family really is. Because when you put it in that context, Terry, of course I want to be with my family, man. I mean, the money don't mean nothing then, because I'm about to die.
Right.
You know what I mean? The fame don't mean nothing, because I'm about to die. But I think a lot of guys just don't have that mentality. And then younger players don't have that mentality because, hey, they're invincible. I ain't dying no time soon. I'm going to enjoy this money. I'm going to enjoy my life. So, you know, it's a whole different paradigm there. But that's a great point.
Well, you know, I think you made a great point too. You know, bottom line is this. You know, family is definitely number one. But you know, I think maybe there was something there, before he even got to this particular, you know, phase of his life, being a superstar, and maybe that's what drove him to be so great. Because I try to research a lot of athletes, and I'm always trying to figure out what was that motivating factor to make this person become who he is or who she is. And a lot of times it's some type of traumatic event. You know, something that just made them escape into a particular sport. And even for other entertainers, singers or actors or whatever, or actors, it's usually something that occurred that propelled them. And maybe that's what it was. It was something dysfunctional in that relationship or in his home. And I'm not saying that to point out that his home may have been dysfunctional, because in reality most homes are dysfunctional. You know, we sometimes we question that word. What is functional and what's dysfunctional? Who determines that? You know what I mean? What degree is functional and what degree is dysfunctional? That's a hard thing to measure, because you go into one home and you think that it's functional, and you go in another home and you say, this is definitely not functional. This is super dysfunctional. How do you determine that? You know, I remember, you know, doing the social work stuff, going into people's homes, and going in with a social worker that was from, you know, a different era that I came from. You know, for example, I come from the inner city of Chicago. This person comes from the suburbs, and we're going into the same home, and we're seeing two totally different things. This person is seeing something that warrants taking the kids out of the home, and I'm thinking it's the total opposite. We just need to give them some resources. So how do we determine these things? What's functional and dysfunctional? One thing I do know for sure, a lot of athletes come from some rough upbringing, and a lot of times there's alcohol involved, there's drugs involved, or there's poverty, something, you know, and that's why they work they butt off to get out of it, you know. And what happens is they get out of it physically, but emotionally they remain there, and I think sometimes that's what creates these type of situations where it's easier for me to walk away from my family, because being stuck emotionally, and I think psychologically, there's a lot of different things going on with people that we can see with the naked eye, and a lot of times we start witnessing it when they no longer competing at that particular level, and that's when these things start coming to surface. And so that's how we understand the transition,
Well,
Yeah,
you know what,
guys?
Go ahead, Lance. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to just say that, I think Terry in his book describes, the sport as a place to escape. And a lot of times, 2 years, why not deal with the issue instead of not talking about it? But like you guys have said, that, that control, it's escape, really doesn't have to deal with anything. But one day his career is going to be over, and he is going to have to deal with it. And, that transition's coming sooner than he realizes. So, but go ahead, Aaron.
But see, to add to what you just said, Lance, why not just deal with it? See, these are the skills that we're not taught. You know what I mean? How do you just talk the situation out? How do you just deal with it? You're not dealing with your family. Why don't you just work that out, man? You Aaron Rodgers, you got all these resources. The unfortunate thing, these are not the things that they teach us in school. We don't learn these things in our homes. Only reason we know them because we've been in counseling business for years. So we understand the importance of talking or working things out. And you would think that it's a simple solution to the problem, but we're not taught to do that. It's something as simple as that. So we'll let years go by when all we have to do is sit down and have somebody that have some kind of understanding to kind of mediate it and talk it out. It out. It may take more than one time or two times, but I guarantee you, in the long run, it's going to be the best thing that for both sides. Because you realize, okay, what's really important here? And it's my family. It's our relationship.
Exactly.
So,
and you know what, guys? The thing about that, the whole thing about that whole thing is this, man. And I'm just gonna make it personal, and then we can go to break and we'll pick this back up. But for years in my own life, and I know a lot of people who have felt the same way that I have. Once they got out, and I would even say at the college level, when you finally got out at the college level from that oppressive state, you may not have had a bad relationship from your family, but your family is associated with that oppressive state that you were in. Or if it's not an oppressive state of poverty or your neighborhood, it's just an event or something that happened that is totally related to your family. And like you said, that sport became that release, that escape. And many times, if you're a scholarship athlete, right, in college, that is your ticket away from those people, from that situation, from that whole environment. And you go to a whole new environment and don't be good at the sport, because now, you know what I mean, you really don't have to think about those things that you really should deal with in your life. And the only time that you can really deal with them is when you're done playing that sport. So that could, those are all things that I think a lot of people deal with at all levels. So, man, this is a great conversation as usual. We're going to pay some bills right now. We're going to play a commercial, and we'll be right back with more on this great conversation.
Sports is a common denominator in the lives of people everywhere. Our celebration of sports creates an environment that gives athletes an amazing experience that enhances their lives. Athletes work long and hard to be the best at that thing that gives them so much elation. But what happens after the athlete is done? When a circumstance comes up and they're no longer able to play that sport? Whether it's the high school athlete who doesn't get that scholarship to go to the next level, or the college athlete that doesn't get picked in the draft, or even the professional athlete who now has to retire and find something else to do day to day. Many athletes struggle with this transition from competition to regular everyday life. This transition causes trauma And that trauma often leads to depression, anxiety, anger, and even health issues. Author Terry Robinson noticed this problem and researched it and came up with the book, Athlete Transition Stress. This book deals with the subconscious programming and conditioning that goes on in an athlete's mind while participating in a sport. So if you or anyone you know are dealing with these issues related to transitioning from a sport, pick up the book, Athlete Transition Stress, and share your story in our global community online at www.letgroup1.com. Athlete Transition Stress is available on Amazon.com and on the LET Group website at www.letgroup1.com.
Man, the book, Athletes Transition Stress, that was probably one of the main pieces that got the LET Group started in the first place. Terry Robinson, my good friend and co-host, researching and studying athletes and all of the things that they have went through in their life, good and bad. And he has made direct correlation to just their sport, their participation, their camaraderie, all those things that come along with playing a sport and how it has directly affected their behavior, how they are physically, how they deal with their families, everything. And please go out and pick up the book, Athlete Transition Stress. You can pick it up on our website, which is www.letgroup1.com, or you can go out to Amazon and pick the book up as well. It's a great read, and we've even got margins where you can make notes and everything. And again, if you have read the book already, we would encourage you to reach out to us. You can send a note to us on our website, or you can dial into the show at any time, and we would love to hear what you have to say about it. So we're going to go right back into this conversation. It's a very good conversation. It's really deep because it kind of deals with the psyche of the athlete and how that affects their family relationships and every other aspect of their lives. And we're just using Aaron Rodgers as an example because, some of the stuff that he's been going through has been heavily publicized. So, Lance, I'm going to actually toss it back to you, man, and give you an opportunity to speak a little bit more. I know you were about to say something before we went away. So go ahead and take it away, Lance.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to kind of pick up and talk a little bit more about the psychological, because to me that's a fascinating part of the athlete, because, they're programmed to compete and to never lose. And I think sometimes we take that into our relationships too, and and I think we've talked about that in the past. And really in this situation, just talking about Aaron Rodgers is, this is a situation where it's okay to lose, where it's okay to give in. But I think, at some point we have to get rid of that win at all cost mentality. Heck, you almost need that to be able to compete at that level, especially being a quarterback and being an all-pro quarterback where you have all those expectations on you. But really what fascinates me is, just the mind of the athlete and, just being in control. I mean, that guy can dissect the defense, see 11 people on the other side of the ball, figure out, what play to call, where to go with the ball, but yet he can't figure out how to start a conversation and resolve an issue with his family, the people that are most important to him. So that's, to me, that's just an amazing difference in just how, like we talked about, athletes are programmed to do those things. So.
Yeah, I think you're right on point with that. But that's how he's been highly trained to be that way. And that's the sacrifice that you have to make in order to be that great in most situations, I believe. And once you cross that particular line, I don't know, it's very difficult to come back on the other side, because I think you get lost in that role. And, in counseling, we always talk about, like, family roles, where you have, like, the family hero, you have the scapegoat, you have the class clown, and then you have the loner. And these relationships were developed by counselors based on a dysfunctional family setup. For example, if you grew up in a home that was dysfunctional, let's say, for example, your dad was an alcoholic. So the way you learn how to live in that house is by taking on one of these roles. The family hero is the type of person that will make sure that everything is done right because they don't want to piss nobody off. So they excel at everything. Then you have the scapegoat, who is the angry person, who pretty much expresses how they feel. They don't care. They like, this family is effed up, and I don't care what nobody say. I see it, I'm not denying it. So every time something goes wrong, that person gets blamed automatically because they looked at it as being an angry child, when in reality, that person is right on the money. They ain't hiding nothing. Then you have the class clown, the person that's always joking, silly, clown, because that's how they learn how to deal with the family. They said, man, this family's so messed up, I'm just going to make everybody laugh so we can lighten up this atmosphere.
Yeah.
And then you have that loner, that kid that sits at the lunch table, eats their lunch by themselves, don't have no friends, and that's because they're like, man, this family's so screwed up, I'm just going to go over here and do my own thing. So you have these particular roles that you learn how to cope in a family structure such as that, alcoholism or whatever. And so I think, and what we always used to teach people in those situations, it's a role. It's not who you are. So sometimes as athletes, we do the same thing. We take on a role as this superhero athlete, and we get caught up in that. But at some point in time, that role is going to change, and then you get confused because you don't know who you are now because you've been stuck in that role for so long. So I think the same thing applies in this situation.
Yeah, and that's what the athlete isn't prepared for, the change of roles, because you're right. I mean, they're all really stars in their own way. You even make it at that level, then, all of a sudden you transition out and that role totally changes. And, how do you adapt to that? And, these guys have so much pride because, that's what they need to get to that point. But a lot of times it stops them from excelling or, making good decisions in other parts of their lives. Like you said, sometimes who they choose for their wife. Do you really love this girl, or do you just looking for, a beautiful woman to show around, you know what I mean? And then, again, Aaron Rodgers, put your pride aside because I know it's powerful, but, this is your family. It's not about winning or losing in those situations. And, like I said, pride is a powerful, powerful emotion, and it really stops us from growing sometimes and experiencing new things.
Right. When you think about it, what's the difference when these guys get to these particular situations than being an actor on television? Because in a sense, that's what they become. Once people build you up and put you on a pedestal, you become an actor. And so you have to live out this role because your life is in the public. So you're living out of role, because that's why you picked this particular woman, because she fits the role that you're playing. A lot of times we don't pick the right people because we're stuck in a role. We don't realize that we're playing a role. We're acting, because when the lights are off, who are you then? And a lot of times we can confuse in that. And they have a lot of money and a lot of exposure, but they can hide for a little while. They got the resources, But in reality, it's a role that most of these guys are playing. I don't think all of them like it because there's some guys that are really grounded. There's very few, but they are there, that they're grounded. They don't get caught up in the hype. But because, the way it's structured, it puts you in that situation. You have to play a role in order to make it, in order to succeed at a particular level. You can't walk around like this. You have to be this. This is who you are. We made you. A lot of times they don't say that, but in reality, that's how it comes across. We made you, and if you don't play this particular role, we're going to find somebody else to fill your shoes. And so you have to keep living out something that's really not who you are.
That reminds me of Dennis Rodman, for the Bulls. He definitely became, that actor. He had to create something or be something that everybody looked up to or create a lot of attention. And one day that eventually got him. You know what I mean? That you just can't do that forever.
No, you can't. You can't.
Yeah.
Listen. It says emotions are responses to present stimuli as filtered through the memory of past experiences, and they anticipate the future based on our perception of the past. So when you hear something like that, what does that mean? And it's everything that we do now. When it becomes emotional, it's a reaction from something that happened a long time ago. So if somebody pissed you off today, all they did was push a button based on something that you learned in the past, how to deal with the situation. So everything always goes back to the past. And so when we talk about these guys, the psychological part of what they're going through is based on something from the past, because we're all made and built that way. Anybody that studies psychology understands that. And we're trying to break down these barriers, huh?
Yeah, and that's exactly right. Because, and that's what I think Eric was talking about, the psychological and physical. These athletes are used to their bodies being, programmed to be able to do whatever they want, to run fast, to jump and cut, or whatever. And a lot of these athletes, I wonder what it's like when their body breaks down physically and what that does to them psychological. You have the Wesley Walkers, I believe, or Wesley, what was his name? He was a wide receiver for the Jets. Yeah. Wesley Walker and Campbell and, different people like that, especially when the football players, their bodies start breaking down, when they're 45, 46, 50 years old, and all of a sudden, bam, they're hardly able to get out of bed in the morning. So
he made a comment, Wesley Walker. He said, "I'm 59 years old, but I feel like a 90-year-old man." And he was a receiver. He was a receiver, and and then you look at. I was reading about the Bears had a alumni banquet. Out of 8 tables, they said they were only able to fill 3 of the tables. They said they just couldn't believe how many people have died and passed on.
Are you serious? Wow.
And this was right. And they said the players from the 50s and 60s made it was more of them than the people that recently played. I said, wow, that's incredible. Yeah. That's incredible, man.
Yeah.
So these guys are getting beat up.
Yeah. That's powerful. And you know what, T, the thing is, like I said, and that's why I actually added the physical piece, because as we all know, man, if your mind ain't right, your body's not right. That's just point blank, period. So, you can drive and push yourself and to try to make you think that you're okay, and that's all outer stuff. But the mind is what's on the inside of you. And if the inside ain't right, the outside will never be right. I don't care how much you work out. I don't care how good you eat. I don't care about any of that stuff. If your mind ain't right, and if you're thinking or running over the same things over and over again, or if there's unresolved issues, those types of things, then it's going to take you to a place where you're just not going to be right. And it will manifest on the outside sooner or later. Guys, just before we keep going on this, and I want to kind of keep that type of conversation going when we come back, how all these internal conflicts that these athletes have, how do they actually manifest into physical problems? I'm going to go ahead and play a commercial here, and then we're going to come right back and we're going to continue this great conversation on Lifestwists Show.
The LET Group was established in 2016. Lance Conley, Eric Harrison, and Terry Robinson came together in agreement to build a model of integrity, hard work, and excellence. All three share a passion for health and creativity, using outside-of-the-box thinking. They all have backgrounds in sports and entrepreneurship. Lance and Terry have over 50 years of combined experience in the mental health field, and Eric has over 25 years of experience in marketing and business. They came together to build a service that would literally change lives. The LET Group offers seminars, books, and other tools to encourage, educate, and enhance the quality of life for those in need. For more information, on the tools and resources that the LET Group offers, visit www.letgroup1.com.
The LET Group, and that stands for Lance, Eric, and Terry. So it's not like we were so deep and creative. But the main objective of our group, our organization, our foundation, is to talk about things like we talk about on this show on a weekly basis that will help people, not just athletes, but people, businessmen, and anyone who may be experiencing things in their lives where they just may not understand what's going on and why it's happening. Maybe we can share a few things that can reveal why you're feeling the way you're feeling and shine some light on some solutions that may be able to help you get over those things that may be holding you back from your unlimited potential. So we got about 14 minutes left. I'm going to toss it to Terry. We are in an amazing conversation right now, and now we're talking about how some of those things that are deep down inside these athletes can manifest on the outside on the physical part. So Terry, go right ahead, man.
Well, yeah, we left off talking about some of the physical aspects of athletes when they transition, and that's when it goes back to the health. Like I said, if your mind's not right, your body's not going to be right. And one thing I know about health is inflammation. When your mind is right, it creates inflammation in your body. And it's not, a lot of times people think it's just the food that you eat, but it's also the mental things that are going on or maybe not going on that creates this that wreaks havoc on the body physically. A lot of times it's inflammation, diabetes, that's inflammation, arthritis, inflammation. When you have all these different immune disorders or whatever you want to call it, that's what in a nutshell, that's what it is. There's some form of inflammation that's going on in the body that won't allow the body to work the way that it should work. And so if we just looking at NFL players, especially some of the bigger guys, these guys, sometimes they force you to eat so that you can be at a certain weight to play. And all of a sudden you no longer playing, but you still eating the same way. You can't go eat 2 chickens. Like the Fridge, I remember the Fridge, that was one of my favorite players, and I was from Chicago. That man ate like 3 or 4 chickens, whole chickens. And just imagine. Can you imagine after he retired, do you think he stopped eating chickens? Or did he eat more of them? You know what I mean? Because he definitely, right soon after he retired, he had money. So, you just continue to eat because when you leave that sport, now, you don't have that. You're not exercising like you used to or working out like you used to, but you're still eating the way you used to, and you start eating probably a little bit more because now you have more time. You're not required to be at practice or be in the bed at a certain time. Now you got all this time on your hands, and you got money, and you used to eating good, and now you can eat as much as you want to because you can just do that. I remember when Michael Jordan retired, they asked him what he wanted to do. He said, I want to grow a stomach. He said, because he worked out so much that he neglected himself from eating like everybody else. People thought, that man was so heavily involved in what he was doing that he was super disciplined. And he said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go and grow me a belly. So what was he saying? On a subconscious level, not just on the conscious level, on a subconscious level. He was saying, man, I'm ready to eat something. I ain't had nothing good, and I hear that about athletes all the time. I just want to go have some ice cream. I just want to do this and do that. And I think a lot of times we deprive ourselves from different things, and then once we get an opportunity, we go overboard with it. We just eat and eat and eat, and why are we eating and eating and eating? That's because there's some unrest there in the mind, which is also physical and psychological combined. And so we create this environment where our health is going to take a turn for the worse if we're not conscious of what we're doing. And a lot of times we're not because, once again, we don't have these conversations. We don't. And it's not because we don't want to. It's because we're not conditioned or trained or programmed to do that. And that's what we're creating, a platform to do this, start talking about these issues. Because our health is without, what do we have?
Yeah, just to add on to that, because, I hear what you're saying, because one of the concerns with athletes, especially when they leave the sport, is you talk about food. That can be a form of addiction, or a form of escape for some people. And a lot of these athletes, like you said, they've been trained to eat because they need to eat so much to maintain their weights, especially football players. But another thing, when we talk about the psychological versus the physical, field was an escape. It was, like you said, they didn't really want to deal with who they were, what their issues were. It was a place where they could go and be successful. And one of the concerns, I think, a lot of what sometimes former athletes experience is sometimes, alcohol addiction or, drug addiction, or what you said is food addiction. And I think that's a strong correlation between the physical and the psychological, because, they need to feel a certain way. They need to feel that high, or they need to feel that escape, or, some type of thing. And I think that's why we see a lot of former athletes have issues after their playing days, because they're trying to capture something or recover something. So, I mean, if you see a picture, if you just look at from this day forward, guys, every time y'all see the picture of a former athlete, just look at them physically. Look at their face, look at their bodies, and you can see how they put on this, they gain this particular weight. And, and you can look behind the eyes sometimes, where you can just say, man, this person, they smiling, but their smile is don't come across as a genuine smile. And a lot of times they just physically don't look good. You know what I mean? And that's not a knock against them, but you can kind of see the stress in most people, and that's not just athletes, but people in general. You can almost see the stress in us. I'm included in that, and I try to be conscious of that. You can look at, man, and when people start making comments about these certain pains or ailments that they're experiencing, a lot of times it's connected to them psychologically or emotionally, and most people miss that. We miss it, and you can almost see it. Especially in a lot of former athletes, because we're used to seeing them in the best shape, best condition. But once you walk away from those environments where you had this strict, discipline in order to perform that way, being under that type of discipline and getting away from it, it's hard to maintain it, because a lot of times it's like being in the military, where you got this strict discipline. Now you're no longer in the military. Can you imagine? It's like being released from something. And I think a lot of these athletes, that's how they feel on an unconscious level, on a subconscious level. I've been released. Now I can just do what I've been wanting to do. In order to stay in here, I had to go by these particular rules. Now I don't have these rules, don't apply to me no more. And sometimes we lose our mind. Yeah, because I think that's happening more and more. I think even, they used to do that at the professional level, but now they do that at the college level, where we got these athletes on, some pretty strict diets. I know Terry used to tell me that back in the day at Drake, you didn't necessarily have those, those plans or those meal plans that I think the athletes probably now do experience at Drake. That they put you on a certain, criteria.
Strict diet.
You can't eat. Yeah.
We didn't at Drake, but that's why our record reflects the way we ate. Because a lot of players on other teams, they did. They had training tables. They had strict diets. But at certain colleges, sports is not the main thing. It's not the meal ticket, and they don't. They're not as strict as some of these major universities or colleges that are used to getting to that term, because they know what it takes. Your diet is critical to fuel you to do what you need to do on the court or the field. You can't just eat garbage and expect to play well.
Yeah, because I remember you said you'd go to McDonald's and eat a few cheeseburgers, huh?
Eat cheeseburgers, eating pizzas every night. I mean, playing basketball. This is ridiculous. Division I school. Yeah. I mean, and then, I talked to my buddy, at University of Texas. They're like, man, we don't eat that stuff. We eat this. We don't even eat with the regular population. We're like, really? We eat with the regular population.
Hey, T,
and that's why your record reflects that.
Right. We ate whatever we get to. Whatever we get.
Right. Right. So it makes a difference, man. You can't. You know, if you're an athlete and you want to be performing at the optimal level, you just can't do it. You know, you can't. You know, only person I know that's been able to do it and get away with it was Usain Bolt. He said when he was at the Olympics, he ate chicken nuggets every day. You know, like hundreds of them. It was ridiculous what he was saying. You know, him and Michael Phelps. You know, Michael Phelps, he said he ate 4,000 to 6,000 calories a day, if not more. But you know, look at these guys how they perform, and they have to because they got to burn off so much. But it was shocking to me that Usain Bolt was saying that, and I, hopefully that's what it was the truth because he could have been promoting a commercial for McDonald's. So I don't know, but that's unheard of. You know, eating that type of stuff and performing at that level, but anything is possible. So we have to be.
Yeah, but you know what, guys? Think about it though for a second. So we play the sport to escape from things, right? To escape from different things that may have happened in our families, our neighborhoods, our environment, mental things, all kinds of stuff. We play this sport for so long, but then we're so disciplined in the sport for so long that now we look to escape from the discipline to go and do the things that we always kind of wanted to do. That's wild, isn't it? Think about it. You know what I'm saying? It's like a vicious circle. It's a vicious circle, huh? That's what it seems like.
Yeah, it is for most people.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly it. Because now you're in a position where you actually can do it, but if you do it, you risk your career or your talent, so you have to wait a little bit longer, just a little bit longer, another year,
man.
1 more year, 2 more years. As soon as that year over, I'm just gonna be a wild man out here. I think that's what we see.
Yeah, because guess what, guys? A lot of times people think just because you're an athlete and you sign that $100 million contract, okay, guess what? You got to be more disciplined. With the more you have, the more disciplined you have to be. It's not like you could just go buck wild. Look, we can even go to the entertainment industry. Big-time superstars that are on the screen, do you honestly think that those people could just stop and just eat and do whatever the hell they want to do? They can't do that because guess what? Now they ain't pretty no more. Now they don't look good to the public anymore. So guess what? Now their earning power goes down. So people don't really realize that with the more you have in any capacity, there's more responsibility and more discipline. But I think people get this false sense of that, and maybe that's one of the reasons why they work so hard in sports because they think, hey, this is my ticket out. But, man, you really don't even know what you're getting into. You know what I'm saying? Until you get into it.
Exactly.
That's wild. Hey, guys, we got about 2 minutes left. So I want some closing statements, and then we're going to close up the show.
Okay. Well, let's all try to focus a little bit more on being conscious of how we're taking care of ourselves because we talk about these athletes all the time, but in reality, it's really about us as individuals, because athletes are people just like we are. We just use them because of the platform that they have. And so we, all of this is to really help us as individuals.
Yeah,
right.
And I totally agree. And, I think one of the things that, came out is, it don't matter who you are, whether you're Aaron Rodgers or a guy walking down the street or a gal walking down the street, people have issues and have problems. And, one of the things that, we're trying to teach is, be aware, deal with issues before they become a problem. And that's definitely going to help people with their transition. And being more aware that we're always going through transitions, just be conscious where you're at and what you're doing, and how you feel about those transitions.
Great. And on those great notes, we're going to go ahead and end the show. You know what? This is our 12th show, and we are so glad that you guys have stuck with us. And we just want to extend a thank you to everyone that listens to our show faithfully. And, hey, we are going to keep putting these shows out there. We're going to keep doing great things. So until next week, same time, same channel, we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us on the Lifestwists Show. When you have a chance, please check out our website at www.letgroup1.com and see all of the things that we'll be doing.
Right on an hour, man.
meantime, have a great week, and we'll see you soon.